Welcome. This is Uncommon Sense, a podcast presented by the Moore CPA Knowledge Centre. The Centre is an initiative of the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the Chartered Professional Accountant profession in Alberta. Our episodes feature conversations with Alberta CPAs sharing their insights on a wide range of timely topics. Alberta CPAs work in every part of the economy and volunteer their time and expertise in virtually every community in Alberta. With each episode, we bring you voices and perspectives that reflect the diverse knowledge and contributions that CPAs bring to our province.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense. I'm Erin Schwartz, Director of the CPA Education Foundation. 2026 is an Olympic year, and later this winter, Olympic and Paralympic teams from around the world will convene in Italy for this showcase sporting event. That makes this episode very timely. Our guest today, Patrick Moore CPA CA, is an Edmonton-based accountant who will be part of Canada's Paralympic cross-country ski team, serving in a crucial support role for the athletes. Patrick is an assurance partner in MNP's Edmonton office, specializing in audit services. Pat works with a variety of public sector entities, charities, and not-for-profit organizations, and owner-managed businesses. Pat assists the MNP Quality Risk and Compliance Group with quality management reviews for assurance practices. He is also a leader in the delivery and development of assurance education. In addition to his busy role as a CPA, Pat also has an incredibly interesting life outside of the office. For many years, he has been active in the world of cross-country skiing at both the recreational and international competition levels. He has served as wax technician for the U.S. Olympic cross-country ski team and is scheduled to play a similar role with Canada's Paralympic cross-country team at the Paralympics in Italy this March. He is also an active cross-country skier himself, as well as a skilled water skier. On top of all that, Patrick currently serves as Director of Finance and Vice Chair for the World Triathlon Series in Edmonton and is a former treasurer with Cross Country Alberta. I'm delighted to have Pat with me today to talk about his life as a CPA and as a cross-country skiing expert and his experiences in the world of cross-country skiing at the Olympic level. Welcome to Uncommon Sense, Pat.
Hi, Erin. Nice to see you. This is fun. I'm super happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. As I think we told you in advance, we're going to start off our chat, as we always do, by asking you to share a piece of uncommon sense. That might be a word of wisdom or a life hack you've picked up at some point along in your career or personal life. Can you think of anything that you'd like to share with us today?
You bet. I think a piece of uncommon sense is that sometimes it's okay to be a little uncomfortable in your life. It's okay to operate outside your comfort zone and feel like you're in just a little bit over your head. I think when you're doing that, it's helping you grow, it's helping you progress. And if it doesn't feel that way sometimes, probably things are just getting a little stagnant and stale, and you've got some opportunities there.
Absolutely. And is there an area where you've recently felt that way in your life?
Oh man, being a CPA in a public practice accounting firm, I think every day and every week that comes up. You never know what you're going to deal with. You never know what assistance your clients are going to need. And so it's something that you're dealing with all the time.
Thanks for that, Patrick. We are going to dig into your experiences in the world of cross-country skiing. But before we get to that, can you provide a brief overview of your career path as a CPA and how you kind of came into partnership at MNP?
Well, I started at MNP in January of 2003, so I am coming up on my 23rd anniversary with the firm. I'm not that new there anymore. And I've been a lifer at the firm. I progressed there from co-op student all the way through partner. It's provided me with incredible opportunities to learn all sorts of different things and work with all sorts of different clients, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And have you always kind of been in that audit stream, or did you ever test out any other areas, or was that just always what you knew you wanted to do?
I really sort of have been always in that audit stream. I often have to explain to family members that in the same way that not all doctors do the same types of surgery or work on the same types of patients, not all accountants do the same thing, and I am not necessarily the guy that you want to be preparing your personal income tax returns. I've been an auditor basically from the beginning.
Yeah. I think that's something that we can all relate to. Whether or not we do tax or not, we can all relate to that. Hey, I have a tax question for you that you get from, friends and family, especially around March and April.
Sweet. I'm not the person for that.
Yes. I'm like, cool. I will text my friends who actually will be able to answer your questions.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. And how has your CPA designation helped you achieve your career goals thus far?
It's really been everything. It's provided so many opportunities to do different things, and I think the training that you get as a CPA as you're coming up through the program really opens a lot of doors to other things that you might do in your life. It teaches you ways to think about things and prioritize issues and problem solve, sometimes in ways that are uncomfortable and feel like you're in a little over your head, as I mentioned off the top. It's really been the foundation for everything that I've done.
Yeah. And now are you involved in training the next generation of CPAs and seeing it from the other side?
I sure am. One of my roles at M&P is in the delivery of assurance education. And so that means both helping develop certain of the training materials, but also actually facilitating and teaching the courses to both new up-and-coming CPAs and students, but also people that have been there for a long time. One of the things in this profession is making sure that we are doing ongoing professional development. Standards are always changing, rules and regulations are always changing, and it means we need to be on top of that. And so it's a fun thing to be involved in making sure that everyone's always up to speed.
Absolutely. That's great. So now we get to turn to your involvement in cross-country skiing. I'll start with a question that might be on many listeners' minds after hearing my introduction of you. What is a wax technician?
Well, a wax technician is part of the ski team or the biathlon team, depending on which skiing sport you are involved in, that really works specifically with the skiing equipment. One thing that people may not know who aren't involved in the racing aspect of the sport is that at the highest level, when those athletes are showing up to the World Cup or the World Championships or the Olympics, they are bringing with them many, many pairs of skis. It can be 20, 30, 40 pairs of skis per athlete.
Wow.
And so when you have a team of many athletes, there's a ton of equipment to deal with. And so that means in your role as a wax technician or a ski technician, your job is to ensure that the athletes are on the right pair of skis for that day, because they're unique and specific to the temperature and the snow conditions and the way that that's changing and evolving throughout the day. And then also ensuring that they have the right products applied to the skis. So we put different waxes and different preparations on the skis to make them go as fast as possible on that particular day. So it's sort of a dual role, working with the equipment and the skis, but also translating that to and from the athletes to make sure that their needs are met.
Wow. I thought it was probably just about the wax. And, I would have guessed maybe a couple pairs of skis, but maybe like up to 30 or 40 pairs for one athlete. That's wild.
It's really actually incredible when you see the big trucks that the teams have that haul all of this stuff around, and that as waxers we work out of in actually carrying out our work. It's hard to even understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And then is there also an aspect of personal preference? Like, do you get to know the athletes and kind of what they, there's the snow, there's the conditions, all that. But then is there, from individual to individual, some differences as well?
There definitely is. So being a wax tech means that there is some psychology involved in that process. Also, it's not just robotically working with the equipment. It also means understanding the needs of the athletes and what are their preferences and how are they feeling that day, and are they feeling really good and strong, or are they having a little bit of an off day and they need their skis prepared a little bit different accordingly. And sometimes it's also even just about understanding when they make a request, are they doing that out of comfort, or are they doing that because they really actually need that? When they come back after testing and say, oh, I need a little bit more grip on these classic skis to be able to get up the hills. Well, do they actually, or are they just saying that because they're nervous and they're managing their nerves in that way? So there's a lot of complexity.
No kidding. And you're balancing that kind of that discomfort of, okay, do we need to push them a little bit away from this, or do we need to actually go ahead with that?
That's exactly it. And, sometimes it's okay for the athletes to feel a little bit uncomfortable as well, to know what the right thing is for that day.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. So tell me about your journey to becoming an Olympic level wax technician. Like what kind of education or certification, or what was that journey like?
It's really different than the process of becoming a CPA. There is no formal training. There's no formal certification process or, classes that you take or anything of that nature. So that part of it is different, but the part that is maybe a little bit the same is that there's a lot of learning on the job, just like there is in when you're being an accounting student or an audit student and working on site with teams. Yeah. So the process to becoming a high-level wax technician really is just that. It's about gathering experience and that concept of putting in 10,000 hours and working with a lot of different skis and athletes really all over the place to build up and gain that knowledge. For me, that started by working with my local club here in Edmonton as a volunteer coach and a volunteer ski technician for several years, kind of leading up to the 2010 Olympics. There was a particular Canadian athlete that I worked very closely with, and sort of we formed a small little team in helping her get to the Vancouver Olympics and have a great time there and some great results. And it was one of those things where, one thing sort of just led to another. People started to take notice of that. And by doing good work here locally, it opened opportunities with different teams across Canada and then ultimately with USA.
Okay. And then each opportunity you just keep learning and growing, and then eventually you got to the Olympics. Yeah,
that's exactly it. It's just about working with different athletes and seeing different venues and different types of conditions and really just building up a bank of knowledge so that when you encounter a situation, you can say, gosh, I've seen this before. This is what worked in another situation.
Right.
I know what to do here.
Right. So for the U.S. Olympic team, when you were a part of it for 2 Olympics, right?
That's right, yes.
2018 and 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So how many athletes were you servicing, and then how many wax technicians are part of that support group?
So I worked with the USA cross-country ski team from about 2012 through to really the very recent past. And the number of athletes would vary depending on the nature of the event. At the Olympics, most big nations like USA or like Canada are able to start 4 athletes per race, which is actually smaller than what there would be at a normal World Cup. At a normal World Cup, the quota of athletes is actually larger. The fields are larger because there tends to not be athletes from other random nations that, sometimes show up at the Olympics and have met the criteria to be there. So at the Olympics or at the World Championships, it is 4 athletes per race. And the staff is really quite significant. We would have a staff of 8 or 10 waxers or ski technicians that would be working with those athletes, because it's not only the athletes that are starting the race on that day that you're taking care of, but it's also the athletes who are starting the next race or the alternates. They still have their needs to complete training on a given day. And so it is a really big team that's working together to make sure that those skis are getting out the door for the athletes every single day.
Wow, that's really cool. So yeah, a lot more complicated than someone might think, certainly than I would have thought. Any other, I know we've talked about most of it, I think, but any other factors or considerations that kind of go into that process of preparing a skier?
I've thought about this a lot over the years, and there are many similarities to that process of testing skis, testing wax, testing products, and ultimately making the skis and getting them into the race, to what I would encounter in my role as an audit partner, as a CPA every day. In both situations, you're really working with time constraints. You're working with imperfect information. It's impossible to know everything. You can't test every product in existence or every wax on a given day. And you're doing all of that with a team in most instances to meet a deadline. You've got to get those skis ready by the time the race starts.
Yeah.
You need to be able to hand them to your athlete to get to the start of the race when that gun goes off. And that is really similar to what we do as CPAs in many instances. We never have perfect information. We're always using professional judgment. There's a ton of teamwork involved. And you better believe there's deadlines.
Yeah. And you never know when something might come up at the last minute that flips everything on its head.
That's exactly it. No different than sometimes the sky can unleash and there's a snowstorm or it starts raining that you weren't expecting half an hour before the race started, and suddenly it changes everything.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's pretty wild. The U.S. Olympic cross-country ski team for many years. And now this year you'll be switching to the Canadian Paralympic team. So
that's right.
How did you end up with the U.S. team? And we're going to try not to hold it against you.
You won't be the first one who's brought that up.
But yeah, tell me a little more about that.
It's not so different than the way that anybody ends up at any job or any company or any firm. I had been doing work locally here in Alberta, and I actually did do some early international trips with Canada. I made a trip with Canada to World Junior Championships one year. But at that time, when I was earlier on in my ski waxing career, Canada didn't really need help at the World Cup at that point. It was more sort of on the domestic level or the North American circuit, kind of the minor leagues, you could think of it as. And that was fine. I gained a lot of experience in that way. But it's a pretty small community. And one summer, I got a call from the head coach of USA who either had heard of me or got to know me through friends of friends, that sort of thing. And he said, hey, we need some help with World Cup this year. Would you be interested in coming on board to help us out with that? And it was a great opportunity. It was something different than Canada had available at the time. And so I jumped on that. It's interesting to know that I think outside of Olympic teams like the hockey team or maybe the curling team in Canada, it's really normal that the staff would be quite international. And so it's not unusual that as a non-American, I was working with Team USA. On that team, we had I had other colleagues and we had other waxing staff from all over the place, like Estonia and France and Norway, really international. And actually, the Canadian staff is very similar in that regard as well.
Right. That in and of itself sounds like a really interesting aspect of being part of that team. It's just like the people you meet along the way and how diverse of a team it would be.
It's crazy, actually. It's a really neat thing to now have very close friends that I've spent hundreds of hours with in small spaces and small wax cabins, sometimes working under really stressful conditions. That I've got these friends all over the world now. It's super cool to be on a trip somewhere and be able to call someone up and say, hey, I'm in France, let's meet up.
Yeah. Really cool. Speaking of trips, so you've attended 2 Olympic competitions. You were showing me some of your gear from those. Tell me a little bit about those experiences of traveling internationally with the Olympics team.
Being involved in cross-country skiing has been a big privilege because it has taken me to some parts of the world that there's no way I would have experienced under normal circumstances or as a normal tourist. Places like Turkey, the mountains in Turkey. I didn't even know Turkey has snow. Maybe most people don't think about that, let alone big mountains.
Yeah.
Or parts of Eastern Europe or China or Korea for those Olympics in 2018 and 2022. It's taken me to lots of really neat places that, just things I wouldn't see otherwise.
Yeah, that's cool. And people say, and I think even just as a viewer and someone who enjoys watching the Olympics, there's something different about Olympics compared to like World Championships and other competitions that are at the same level, like caliber of athlete and everything. Like, what's it like to be a part of that?
That's a really good observation, I think. It's incredible. Certainly when we think about less televised sports, at least in North America, like cross-country skiing, it is the biggest stage for that sport on this continent, at least. But for other sports too, I mean, if we think about hockey, certainly Connor McDavid wants to win a Stanley Cup, but to maybe come home with an Olympic medal in 2026 and hopefully a gold medal, I mean, that is the pinnacle for any athlete. And being part of that, you feel that energy, you feel the crowd, you can feel that the expectations and really the whole operation is just elevated from what you experience in a normal competition, even at the highest level.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm getting like chills thinking about it. I'm getting excited for the 2026 Olympics. So you talked about, obviously you were with the U.S. Olympic ski team. Did you ever, because you mentioned biathlon as well, did you ever get involved in that side or strictly cross-country skiing?
So in the Olympic stream, the biathlon and cross-country teams are completely segregated. They race at different venues.
Right.
The teams don't really have any overlap for the most part. Okay. However, this is going to be something different for me working with Canada so far this year already, and as we go into the 2026 Paralympics. In the Paralympic stream, there's a lot more integration between the cross-country and the biathlon teams, and in fact, there's crossover between the athletes and the waxing staff, the coaching staff really is the same for both cross-country and biathlon. So that's something that I've had to do some learning about and take some safety training this year to learn about being on the biathlon range and around the rifles and safe handling of them and that sort of thing. So it's all a little bit new for me. Skis are skis. That part of it's the same, but the races are definitely different.
Yeah. Are you excited about that?
Biathlon racing is insane. Cross-country ski racing is really easy to understand. The gun goes off. Either it's a time trial with an individual start and, whoever has the fastest time wins, or it's a mass start where everybody goes together and just whoever crosses the finish line first wins the race. But in biathlon, there's the shooting aspect of it as well. And that leads to bonkers changes in the outcome of the races because just a couple of misses in the range, if they miss the targets once or twice, and either leads to time penalties or having to ski extra distance, they call it penalty loops, it can massively change the way that the race is unfolding completely separate from the skiing part of it. And so I find that the outcome is very unpredictable and it's super exciting.
Yeah. So are you going to be a, rifle technician or something too, or sticking to skis?
I'm not. So as a ski waxer, I will be strictly involved in the skis. We need to know how to be around the rifles and be safe around them, but handling them and loading them and ensuring that they're stored or on the range as appropriate is not something that I'll need to be involved in.
And it's not your next challenge that you're hoping to get into.
Not so far. I'll stick to my area of expertise right now.
Yeah, fair enough. So what have you learned about yourself by participating in all these amazing events?
I think one of the biggest things I've learned about myself is that as an individual, I've got the ability to do hard things. I remember the first time I was going to World Championships and really thinking to myself, I've done this a lot. I've done a lot of World Cups. I've got the skills for this, but how did I end up at this place? Do I really belong here? What if I show up and don't know what I'm doing? And it was pretty nerve-wracking, to be honest.
I bet.
And really just had to remind myself that no, I've put in the time, I've put in the effort, I've done the things, and it's going to work out. And it did ultimately. But just that ability to do hard things and deal with stressful situations has been a really good learning opportunity.
Yeah, and manage some of the imposter syndrome that comes up, it sounds like.
100%, because especially when those races or those championships are in countries where, different than North America, cross-country skiing is one of the biggest sports, or maybe the biggest sport.
Right.
Everybody's there. So, when you're at a World Championships in Finland or Sweden or Norway and, there's 100,000 people around the course, the noise is deafening. It's literally like being on the bench for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Right.
But with 5 times as many people in the stands spectating it. And all the eyes are on you. The energy is really cool, but
intimidating.
But it's also intimidating. You know that you need to be on your game.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. In a couple months, you'll be off to Italy with the Canadian Paralympic cross-country team for the Olympics. And so how did your involvement with that team come about? And a similar role, right?
That's exactly right. So still the same type of role, working with the skis, and I'm super excited to be working with Canada for this year. This is the first time at sort of the highest level of competition I'll have the opportunity to pull on a Canadian uniform, and I've done my first couple weekends of World Cups with the team so far already this winter, and just that first day of getting that uniform and laying that out and seeing that Canada logo or the maple leaf, that was cool. That was a fun thing to get set for that. And so the way that came about is, again, it's a pretty small world. And so the head coach of cross country for Paranordic in Canada is a person named Brian McKeever. He's one of Canada's most decorated Olympic or Paralympic athletes. He has an incredible amount of medals at the Paralympics and is also a really good friend. And when he retired after 2022, after the Beijing Olympics and Paralympics, he became the head coach, and he just reached out to me sort of very similar to how I got involved with USA this summer, and said, hey, it would be great to have you involved. Maybe it's time that you were with Canada. And I decided that, the time was right, and it was a great chance to do that. Very
cool. And so previously you've been with the Olympic team with the States. Have you worked with Paralympic athletes before?
This was new for me as well, working with Paralympic. And so there's definitely been some learning and more learning to do about that, just in terms of the other equipment that comes along with the Paralympics. In the Paralympic stream for skiing, there's 3 categories, which is standing, sitting, and visually impaired, or VI. And for example, the sitting athletes have sleds that the skis are attached to that they are sitting in and skiing along with. Some of the visually impaired athletes have headphones and microphone systems so that their guide can message back to the athlete left turn or right turn or uphill or downhill and explain to them. And so there's a whole different aspect that I've had to sort of pretty quickly get on board with and start to understand.
Yeah. So new learning, new growth, and an area where you're not comfortable yet.
That's exactly it. And you mentioned earlier about just understanding the athlete preferences and what that's like. It's different in this case as well. Testing with the para athletes is different than testing with the other Olympic stream athletes that I've worked with previously, as is the way sometimes the skis need to be prepared. Yeah. In a classic race where they need sticky grip wax on the skis to get up the hill, it's different if that's an able-bodied person skiing up the hill versus someone who has one arm or maybe no arms and is using entirely their legs.
Right.
The way the skis need to come together isn't quite the same.
Yeah. Oh.
So it's a whole other world.
Totally. That's great. And when you are out at events and meeting people, whether it's your colleagues or folks from, other teams or that kind of thing, are people surprised when you get talking and you tell them that you're an accountant, that you're a partner in a firm?
I always joke that the people in the world of skiing would be very surprised to see me in a suit and tie. I think that's hard for them to visualize what that would look like. And similarly, I think people in the world of accounting, it would be hard for them to visualize what that looks like on the day-to-day basis in the world of skiing. It is pretty separate and distinct. There's not a lot of crossover. I've been at this long enough that I think word has sort of gotten out and people do know that I'm involved in both sides of it. But sometimes either when I've left for ski racing, I need to send a picture back to the office and say, hey, I'm wearing a different uniform today than I was last week, or vice versa for right. my skiing friends to say, hey, I'm in a suit today. It looks pretty different than how you saw me yesterday.
Yeah. And is it hard to switch back and forth? I mean, you obviously, like you say, you've been doing it a long time, so maybe you just switch back and forth naturally, or?
It takes some planning ahead for sure,
right?
To ensure that all the client needs are squared away and that the team needs are squared away. It's really changed over the years, actually. It's sort of an interesting aspect of how this has worked out. Early on, when I would have been doing international trips, having a roaming cell phone basically wasn't a thing,
right.
Especially not having roaming data and email on your phone.
Right.
That was the world of BlackBerries just becoming a thing. And so at that time, I was very disconnected from the accounting world when I went away for ski racing, because maybe I was in Europe and really had no connection unless I made it into an internet cafe. I mean, there's new CPAs maybe listening to this that don't even know what the concept of an internet cafe is. It's so old-timey now.
Yeah.
Whereas these days with cell phones that do just have roaming, and you go to Europe just assuming, or go to Asia assuming that your phone and your data and your email is going to work, and it kind of just does. It's pretty easy to stay in touch. And if there is a fire that comes up or an emergency that needs dealing with, I might not be able to be the one to do it, but I can triage it and make sure that it happens.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, timing-wise, I imagine it's tricky. Like you say, you can be a little bit involved, or people can call you if there's something big that happens. But especially thinking, March, that's, I imagine, maybe one of your busiest months of the year normally?
It sure is. And sometimes it does take some explaining and understanding for people that when I'm away for ski racing, it's not a vacation. It's not like going to Italy to hang out in the mountains and do some alpine skiing and maybe eat lunch on a patio somewhere. It's not like that. It is a full gas, full-on, full-time job, very often starting before the sun comes up and finishing after it goes down each day. It's a ton of hard work, which means that it does take a lot of communication and planning ahead to make sure that clients know where I am and sort of what my availability is, that the team knows where I am and what my availability is, and that there's a backup plan.
Right.
If something does come up that needs addressing right away.
Yeah. So you've got your team at MNP kind of available to handle everything while you're away, I imagine.
You bet. That's exactly right. I think one of the most significant things about being a partner and being a great partner is building up a team of great people that are really the ones doing the work with the clients and being there day to day that can help with problems that come up, and if you've done that well, you know that they're going to be fine.
Yeah. Having that trust and in their abilities 100%. And all that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really cool. So what are you most looking forward to about Italy?
Well, first of all, the place where the Paralympic cross-country skiing and biathlon is a little town or a little valley in Italy called Val di Fiemme. It's a place I've been many times before for regular World Cups and other types of cross-country ski racing. And it's awesome. That is a beautiful place to be in the springtime. It's sunny. The temperature tends to be nice. I'm really looking forward to that part of it. But more than that, I'm looking forward to working with Canada. It's cool to be there in a Canadian uniform. It's really cool to be there with the Canadian staff and the Canadian athletes. Canada has a lot of really excellent Paralympic cross-country skiing and biathlete individuals. There's tons of medal potential, and it's the coolest to be part of that. That's so much fun.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we will definitely be following it closely from here.
Right on. I'm looking forward to providing some updates.
Awesome. And so you mentioned that you've been there many times before. Does that give you an advantage, or are there just too many variables that you'll see what it is when you get there?
You know, a little of both, actually. Yeah. I think that it does provide some advantage that there is some background and we sort of know what to expect and have some idea of what we might see there. But at the end of the day, making really good race skis just comes down to hard work. It means doing a lot of testing and a lot of background legwork in the days leading up to the events and on the mornings of the events. Right. And it really is a lot of just-in-time testing and information.
Yeah, fair. So you yourself are a cross-country skier as well.
That's right.
Do you get to strap on some skis and get out while you're there, or is it too busy?
Well, yes, there is a lot of skiing involved in this job, actually.
Oh, because you're testing.
Because you're testing the skis and you're testing the products and you're skiing with the athletes to help them make the final choice about their skis. And so there's a lot of skiing involved. What there isn't is really any tourist skiing.
Right.
When I'm at these race venues or these events, mostly I tend to just kind of see the race trails, the test track, where we're able to be testing the skis. I don't usually have almost any, if any, opportunity to be just skiing around for fun, right, seeing the trails that the tourists are on. But that's okay. The race trails are a pretty cool thing to be able to see, and it's a fun challenge to be out skiing on the same ones as the athletes.
Totally. That's cool. So when did you start cross-country skiing, and what drew you to the sport?
Boy, I've been cross-country skiing for really as long as I can remember. I grew up in a little town in eastern Alberta called Vermilion, and I was pretty lucky in that we had a really enthusiastic cross-country ski coach there, and one of Canada's most famous cross-country skiing athletes, a lady named Becky Scott, who was a gold medalist for Canada at the Olympics in 2022, came from Vermilion as well and is a good friend. She's a few years older than me. And so I grew up skiing there on those trails at the Vermilion Provincial Park, and it's really just something that's stuck with me ever since. That's one of the coolest things about cross-country skiing is it's a sport you can do from literally 0 years of age, being in, the backpack of your mom or your dad or being pulled in a sled to 99 years of age. There's people from very beginning to very end out there on the trails. It's an awesome sport for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Becky, you said, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
So you got to see her get her gold medal in 2022?
No, 2002. Sorry, I might have said 2022, but yes, 2002. So Becky got her gold in 2002 in Salt Lake. So I did not get to see her do that. I can very distinctly remember I was at U of A at the time, and another old-timey thing. I can remember going to the bank of computers in the second floor of the business building in the student lounge, because I didn't have a phone with internet on it. That wasn't a thing. And logging into that bank of computers to go check and see what the results were, and seeing that she got a medal and just being so excited about that. It was one of the coolest things.
Yeah, really neat. So for you, what are your personal goals when it comes to your cross-country skiing? Are you setting personal bests? Are you in competitions? Is it just about fitness and fun?
Well, it's kind of all of those things, actually. I learned really early on that to do a good job as a ski waxer, as a ski technician, it's super important that you show up to those events in good shape. You end up doing, number one, a lot of skiing, so that's important. And number two, you end up doing a lot of skiing with the athletes. And I mean, these are professional athletes. It's their full-time job. And even when they're skiing slow, quote unquote slow for them, they're moving pretty fast compared to the average person. Yeah. And so to be able to just hang with them for testing skis, for being out there, you've got to be in really good skiing shape. Right. And so that means that I do a lot of my own racing. I train really hard all throughout the year just so that I can make sure that when I show up to, for example, the Paralympics in the spring this year, or this upcoming year, that I'm going to be able to give my best for those athletes and help give them the best chance.
Yeah, very cool. So you're also into water skiing. So not just cross-country skiing, but the water skiing. So is that does that help you kind of keep up with things? And I mean, it's quite a different skill set.
I love water skiing so much. It's one of my favorite things. The truth is, I don't know that I think it's all that specifically connected to cross-country ski training. It's something that I do for fun. It's a really great diversion, a great activity separate from my normal cross-country ski training that I would be doing. Certainly there is some crossover in that balance is important and core strength is important, and it's water skiing in terms of the competitive level of it is really it's really explosive, it's really intense, and so in that way it would kind of cross over. But mostly I think it's important to do multiple different sports, to have other interests outside of just work or the primary sport that you're doing. It's good to be well-rounded, and that's what that is for me.
Yeah. So any other sports that are kind of big for you personally?
In training for cross-country skiing, there is lots of different activities that I do or we do as athletes to make sure that we're ready. It definitely involves lots of time in the gym, doing strength training and lifting to make sure that you've got that muscular strength to do the skiing that you need to do. Running is a really big thing. So trail running, just being out there on the trails and in nature is fun. Sometimes on the track, which is often much more torturous because it's usually involving some kind of intensity. Roller skiing would be an activity that we do in the summer, which is really kind of just like cross-country skiing, but on little short skis with wheels when there's no snow and we're going on a paved surface. Right. Cycling has lots of crossover for aerobic endurance and leg strength. So there's a lot of different activities that we do as cross-country skiing athletes to make sure that we're in good shape.
Yeah. Cool. So maybe a bit of an odd question, but are there skills and attributes of your CPA knowledge that you apply to your involvement in cross-country skiing, and vice versa? I think you've talked a little bit about that, but anything else to add?
It's really that concept of professional judgment. As auditors, that's something that we talk about a lot and we think about a lot, applying professional judgment, making well-reasoned choices. And it's exactly the same in ski racing. The deliverable is very different. Yeah. When I'm dealing with my day job, when I'm being a CPA, that deliverable is an audit opinion or a report of some kind that a user is going to read and rely on. In cross-country ski racing, the deliverable is the skis themselves, and the athletes are relying on them heavily to be able to have their best performance. And so that concept of professional judgment translates directly across into my non-accounting side job for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So you mentioned kind of the importance of having those interests outside of work, whether it's work as an accountant or work as a ski technician. But why do you feel it's so important for folks to have activities and personal passions outside of work?
I think it's just really important to be an interesting person. That helps you in so many different aspects of your career. As a CPA, whether you're working in industry or in a firm, having interests outside of just being an accountant provides you with more well-rounded experience. It gives you life experience and gets you in front of situations that you might not see and might not even seem directly related to accounting. But they are. Mm-hmm. All of that experience and all of those life skills and addressing and dealing with those situations that come up, it translates. It provides you with more with more knowledge and makes you more valuable as a professional. And not only that, it just makes you more interesting to talk to.
Hence us having been here for the last hour, and I just can't stop asking you questions. And so I'm curious if you can share, if there's ever been anything, whether in the, your work in the cross-country ski world or some of those other passions where has that then translated to career success for you? Have there been business development opportunities or like connections in that world that you've been able to bring into the firm?
It's a funny thing. I can think of a situation where I was meeting with a new client very recently in the last month. And, we were meeting and having a great conversation about their organization and what their needs were. And kind of at the end of that person made mention to the rest of the board of directors about this cross-country ski racing involvement that I've had. Yeah. The truth is, I didn't know that person. I had never really, I hadn't had a lot of involvement with them, certainly on a personal level. And I actually have no idea how they knew about my cross-country skiing involvement. But it's just one of those things that once she brought it up, the board of directors wanted to talk about it and they were interested in it because it is something different and unique.
Totally.
And it does provide an opportunity to have a discussion about something different than the debits and credits that you're looking at in the financial statements.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably not something they had discussions about with their last accountant.
I can pretty well guarantee that's the case.
Oh, yeah. So one final question before we wrap up. What is something about cross-country skiing that you think would surprise some people?
Oh, boy. I think one of the most surprising things about cross-country skiing, maybe for a lot of people, is that it's really fast. Maybe a lot of people think about cross-country skiing in the form of sort of a Norman Rockwell painting where, it's somebody with knickers on and wooden skis gliding through the woods, something like that. And it is that for sure. There's an aspect of the sport that's exactly what it is. But when it comes to racing, it's really fast. And sometimes those championship courses have incredible downhills where, certainly the athletes, but even as the staff, as we're out there skiing around, we can look at the data on our GPS watches after and see that we hit 50 or 60 or 70 kilometers an hour, which for most people is just not something they would imagine at all for cross-country skis. It's really cool.
We would think that with the downhill.
Exactly.
But yeah, not cross-country.
It's incredibly fast sometimes and really exciting.
Yeah. I've seen the comment online a handful of times, that concept of, in world championships and Olympics and stuff, they should have like a regular person also, so that we can, because it's so hard to gauge when you're watching these races, you don't realize quite how fast they're going. But if you had me out there skiing nice and slow, just leisurely, you would be like, oh wow.
It's so true. And I mean, even for me as someone who is really involved in cross-country skiing, and I mean, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm a pretty decent cross-country skier compared to the average person in the world.
Yes.
But those athletes are
still just
the top 0.5% of all athletes and all cross-country skiers. And I mean, it's a different universe compared to even what I'm doing. It's really fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that and indulging me in all my extra curiosities and questions. I've learned a lot about cross-country skiing and about the value of getting involved in activities outside the office. We've been getting a ton of snow right now in Edmonton, so
it's absolutely dumping today, isn't it?
Yeah, so I imagine you'll be getting out over the holidays, and maybe I'll get out as well.
Hey, you know what? I'll extend that invitation. If that's a thing you're excited about, let's go. I'd be glad to take you.
I'm way too intimidated to ski with you, Pat. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to share your stories with us. And of course, best of luck to you and your team in March. And I look forward to seeing how it goes.
Thanks so much. Go Canada.
The Uncommon Sense podcast is presented by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center was created through a generous donation by the late Brian Heshe. Brian was a distinguished Albertan, business leader, CPA, educator, and community builder. His generosity and commitment to education underpinned his good works across Alberta throughout his lifetime. The opinions expressed on Uncommon Sense do not necessarily reflect the views of the CPA Education Foundation. We would like to acknowledge that CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories and Métis Nation homeland. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous people and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Technical and recording services for this podcast provided by Wolf Willow Studios in Edmonton. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you have any comments about the podcast, write to us at cpaef@cpaalberta.ca. To learn more about the CPA Education Foundation and the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center, visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for the CPA Education Foundation.